Hey everybody, this is Zachary Jeans, and let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is day 359. We are on episode 359, and we are looking at the laws that are being given and the instructions around worship in Exodus. So Moses has led the people, along with his brother Aaron, and they have led the people out and across the wilderness just outside of Goshen, all the way to the Red Sea, through the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army destroyed, and then wandered around the desert a bit, had their first battle, and now they are receiving the law, the hand of Moses, the foot of Mount Sinai with God in all his glory. You got peals of thunder, lightning, looks like the mountain is literally erupting. And now we are going to get some of the laws around the actual construction of the tent of meeting. So before we do that, I just want to say thank you. All the things that everybody always says. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the love, the little bell for notifications if you're over on YouTube, subscription and all that. Thank you so much. If you share this video, I appreciate it. If you go to YouTube and you see a clip or hear a clip that you really like, you can hit the clip button and actually clip just that section out and share. And all I ask is if you share it, that you just make sure that you link back so that people know where they got it. But ultimately, I just want them to get it. So I want them to know that God is doing stuff and teaching them stuff through the Old Testament. So ultimately, even if it doesn't link back to me, I don't care. Because ultimately it'll all link back to God, right? All right, so why don't we stop? Why don't we pray? Lord, I love you. God, thanks for your word. God, thanks for this morning. Thanks for helping us understand things from so long ago about how you set things up. God, thank you for being awesome and powerful and terrifying at the same time. You're loving. And God, thank you for people like C.S. Lewis, Lord. Showed us you in the character of Aslan. You're not a tame lion, but you're good. Lord, you are not tame, but you are good. And Lord, we just come to you the only way we can, through your sacrifice, Lord Jesus. And we do that in your name, Jesus. Amen. Okay, let me get a sip of coffee. All right, so we're going to cover quite a bit of material today. If you would like, please go and hit that pause button. Whether you're on a computer or on your phone, you can hit the pause button and you can read. Just to give you a heads up of what we're doing. We are going to read chapter 24, and we're going to read through chapter 27, okay? So not all of this text will we read. I don't think. Sometimes I say that and then I end up reading it. But just as a heads up, chapter 24, okay, which is something we will read all of, but 25, 26, and 27. And in those chapters, there's a lot of description, but it's probably worth skimming over, okay, if you want to just take a minute and read. But there are going to be sections in there which are representative, which I'll be talking about. Again, this is for the construction of the temple and creation of different aspects of worship for the people of Israel. Okay, so why don't you turn to chapter 24, verse 1, and we will open it up. Then he said to Moses, "Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel." That's 70, okay? So there are 70 elders going up with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, right? "And worship from afar. Moses alone shall come near to the Lord, but the others shall not come near, and the people shall not come up with him." So the elders are being set apart along with the named people there, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, along with Moses. And then a further separation. Moses alone will come as close to the Lord as the Lord will allow. So you have this staging, and you'll see that staging represented here in the tent of meeting and how things are set up. And eventually in the temple, where you have like an outer court where all the people are, and then you have the actual temple, and then you kind of have an inner, a holy area, and you have this kind of coming closer and closer to God, and eventually only the high priest once a year is allowed to go into that Holy of Holies, right, and offer the sacrifice on behalf of Israel, which of course represents ultimately Jesus Christ himself going as our high priest and sacrifice into the Holy of Holy presence of the Father with the sacrifice. And just as an aside, and I've mentioned this in previous studies in the New Testament, this is actually where James Vernon McGee had a fairly controversial take that after Christ in his earthly context was sacrificed on the cross, presented himself in Revelation as a slain lamb, implies that he was in a heavenly sense slain before the throne of the Father. It's a little bit of a reach for me. I don't quite go there, but I think that people that ignore that section there, showing him slain after he had risen from the dead, makes you go, what's going on there? It's not quite clear to me, and I wouldn't make the final conclusion that Vernon McGee does on his Through the Bible series. But he is risen from the dead, remember? They saw him, and he had scars, but he was risen. He was whole, and he went to stand before his Father. So, when did he appear as a slain lamb in Revelation? It's interesting, right? But I'll pull back here. So you have this staging of closeness to God, where Moses is the closest to the Lord. And just as one more note again, these 70 elders, I think it's interesting, like kind of gets lost a lot of times in our read-throughs of the Bible or our Sunday school level teaching. These little details, I think it's fascinating. There were 70 elders there. And wouldn't it be great to hear their stories, right? They all have different perspectives. They all saw this stuff from their own eyeballs, their own perspective, right? And how did they share that information out as they went back to their various tribal groups, within the 12 tribes of Israel, their various sections of the family. All right, verse 3. Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord and all the rules. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. He rose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the people of Israel who offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen to the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he threw against the altar. So you have this dual purpose for the blood that's being sacrificed as peace between the people and the Lord. And this ox blood, okay, it's kind of gross. We don't sacrifice animals anymore. But this blood was both splattered against the altar as a sign of, as I understand it, as a sign of consecration, that blood is also sanctifying, purifying the very altar on which it was sacrificed, but it's also then sacrificing on behalf of those offering it. So then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people. And they said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do, and we will be obedient. Now, again, just to set the stage, they're standing before a smoking mountain, peals of thunder, Don't go near it. You will be killed. And in fact, in your sin of touching the mountain, should you touch the mountain, the people that have to take your life for acting in that way can't even touch you to kill you. So they can't kill you by the sword. They have to shoot you or throw rocks at you. Okay? Lest they commit a crime of touching the person who committed a crime. So to that end, this is where people back in the day with all these laws, and you go, why did the Jewish people have all these extra laws? It's because, and this is what Jesus sort of got at them for. It's like, you know, people were afraid to break the law, so then they made laws around the laws and laws around the laws that around the laws. This concept of not wanting to commit the sin, of even being close to the sin. Even in the execution of the person who committed the sin that was ordered by the Lord, right? They had to keep distance. So in our evangelical world, if you're in America and you're an evangelical Christian, and even if you're a part of some of the high churches, this concept of don't be associated with sin or associated with people who have sin has led the church into a place where it is unable to engage in the world. Just did a study last night in James, and a lot of the study was aimed at, you know, don't love the world, of course, James says, and, you know, he who loves the world, you know, is at war with God, all this concept from John. And the thing is all of that has to be read in context of Jesus Christ, who ate and drank with sinners, irreligious Jews, Jews that were not practicing any of the laws, okay? And in the context of Paul, who went out and he said, all things are lawful for me now. Like, he's able to go out and eat and drink. Now, does that mean that he partakes in prostitution? No. Does that mean that he partakes in sacrificing the blood of, you know, animals to idols? No. Does he participate in murder or embezzling money from the church that he's collecting money for the poor? No, that's not what we're saying. But does he talk to people that have committed these sins? Yes. Yes. And when we are unwilling to reach out or be a part of the world that God put us in, because we're afraid of getting that sin on us, guess what? We aren't living out the gospel. Okay? Okay, so I'm not asking you to go put yourself in a situation where you're going to be tempted to sin in such a way that you can't resist it. No, if you don't have that level of security or maturity in yourself or a group of people that are strong with you, of course not. But this concept here, right, of hiding out, all of that comes from very real place here, okay? So in this scene then, he's reading the laws, very strict laws about how to abide and be with the Lord. Then Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel went up, and they saw the God of Israel. There was under his feet, as it were, a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. And he did not lay his hand on the chief men of the people of Israel. They beheld God and ate and drank. Now this, of course, precedes the images that God gives us through John, the apostle, in Revelation. And I would encourage you to go read that. Really just, you might pop over there and read the first, I don't know, read the first 6 chapters of Revelation if you want to take a little extra Bible study and get a sense for what it's like to see a resurrected holy God in Christ Jesus, right? See what it looks like to see that sea of transparent glass, as it were, before the feet of the throne of the Father. The peals of lightning rippling through it and the elders all around. So you have these 70 elders. You have Nadab, Abihu, Aaron, Moses, sharing a meal in the presence of this holy throne room that's been brought down to heaven, or down to earth. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, that I may give you the tablets of stone with the law of the commandment, which I have written for their instruction." So Moses rose with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. And they said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we return to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a dispute, let him go with them." Then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of the Lord dwelt on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the 7th day, he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Now, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So there's some questions here. Did Joshua go with Moses into the cloud in the presence of the Lord, or did he go up with him to a point outside of the restricted zone of this cloud that was there for 6 days? This glory, as the fire was down on it. We also get the impression that there's kind of an ebb and flow of activity on this mountain during this period of time. Clearly, there are boundary points. There was the time preceding the 6 days of the glory of the Lord coming down, and then there's the time afterwards, in which there is glory and fire on top of it, but which Moses enters into. So there seems to be a change in the tone, even literally a voice, a tone, the Father speaking through the cloud for Moses to come on up. And then you also have the presence of Hur now, who we've seen earlier, right? Associated now with Aaron, both in helping Moses hold up his arms for that battle that Joshua was fighting against Amalek. Hur is now mentioned here, okay? So we have Nadab and Abihu. We have Hur mentioned for the first time here. So the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the people of Israel, and they take for me a contribution from every man whose heart moves them. You shall receive the contribution for me. And this is the contribution that you shall receive from him." And what they receive from him are a whole host of things, okay? Everything to essentially make the tent. And in verse 10, when referencing now, they're going to make the Ark of the Covenant. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2 cubits. And again, a cubit, at least as the Bible and historians have defined, is roughly 18 inches. Okay, so it's 36 inches. And a half. So I take that back. So 36, 9, so bad at math. 36, 9, so that's 45. So 45 inches. A cubit and a half its breadth, and so essentially it's a box about yay big. So imagine 45 inches, and then it's this wide. So it's not, in other words, the point of this passage is to tell you, it's a box, a beautiful box, a holy box. At the end of the day, it's a box. And if you follow down to the end here, let's go back to verse 21 of chapter 25. "And you shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I give you. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim," those 2 angelic beings, which are carved on top, "that are on Ark of the Testimony, I will speak with you about all that I have given you in the commandment for the people of Israel." The Ark of the Covenant is the place in which the voice of God or the presence of God is going to speak to Moses. And inside that box, that holy box, God is going to have him place the tablets of the testimony, okay, that he's receiving on top of the mountain. And we'll read about how the first set of tablets that God wrote with his own finger are destroyed and turned into powder because people rebel and Moses has to go back up on the mountain. But a copy of these commandments, at least the 10 commandments, are put in there. And we'll find out later that Aaron's staff that budded, that'll be put in there, and a jar of the manna, right? The holy bread from heaven will be put in there. But the part I want you to notice here about the Ark of the Covenant, we'll read about the Ark of the Covenant being this holy place, this place. It is a place that is a box. And on top of that box with these cherubim, these angels, gold all over it, is a place in which the Lord speaks. Listen to that. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the two cherubim that are on the Ark of the Testimony, I will speak with you about all that I give you in commandment for the people of Israel. I think this is lost. Do you remember the last time you heard a sermon where they actually talked about how God spoke in his person from above the Ark of the Covenant? I don't think so, right? Like, I don't know about you, but most of the sermons I've heard on the Ark of the Covenant always reference, well, don't touch the Ark of the Covenant because it's holy. Remember when they found the Ark of the Covenant? We'll get to the story of David finding the Ark of the Covenant hanging out at somebody's house. And they're like, whoa, we got to bring the Ark of the Covenant back to us. And somebody, with all the ceremony, pomp, and circumstance, they're bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to the people of Israel. And King David and the ox jostles or something, and somebody reaches out and touches it, and they die. And the Ark of the Covenant is captured by, the people, I believe it's the Philistines. And, people start dying of cancer. The Ark of the Covenant, Indiana Jones, which is, of course, a fictitious story, but it does highlight that the Nazis of Germany were after a lot of relics back in the day. And one of the relics that they were seeking, supposedly, was the Ark of the Covenant. But, at the end of Indiana Jones, what happens? The Ark of the Covenant's opened up and, people's faces melt off. Really bad, wax filmmaking. But, the idea is that the Ark of the Covenant in its presence kills people. But that's not what's going on here primarily. Primarily, all of that holiness is from the person of God that's meeting with Moses and speaks with him from above its kind of surface there between the angels on the seat, right? So let's look at the table for the bread. So you shall make a table of acacia wood, again, remember, 2 cubits shall be its length. How long's a cubit? 1.5 feet. So what do we got? 3 feet. And it's going to have rings of gold and this and that. And you're going to carry it with poles, right? So you aren't going to just grab it. And you shall place the bread, this is verse 30, and you shall place the bread of the presence on the table before me regularly. So there's going to be unleavened bread set upon this table as an offering, and it'll be put there regularly. This is where you get that whole story much, much later with King David, who's fleeing King Saul, and goes to and meets with them at the temple there, not the temple, but the tent of meeting, and they're starving to death. They're starving, and they get, the sword which he had, killed Goliath with, and but he also eats the showbread, bread of the presence, and that's where it was sitting. And it was unlawful for him to eat, Jesus says, but he ate it, and God was okay with it. That's the whole part where God is trying to share with the people that the law is there for them, but there is mercy and grace and circumstance for them as they're trying to keep the law. Okay, let's look at verse 31. You shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lamp shall be made of hammered work, its base, its stem, its cups, its calyxes, and its flowers shall be of one piece with it. There shall be 6 branches going out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand, one side, 3 branches on the other. Okay. And at the end, here, verse 40, and see that you make them after the pattern for them, which is being shown you on the mountain. This lampstand, these golden lampstands, which are going to stand inside this tent because it's going to be dark, because light's not coming in, and they're going to dye these curtains, okay, and it's going to be very dark in there, and these beautiful, hammered, single piece golden lampstands are going to be lit with pure olive oil, and they're going to give light inside, right? It's going to drive out the darkness in the presence of the table there with the bread on it, and when the priest goes in to the Ark of the Covenant, Holy of Holies, to the altar, there will be there'll be light, and there has to be light and darkness. They can't go in there and operate in darkness. And I think the important thing here is that he mentions that, again, this isn't them just making it up. This is what the Lord showed them to do on the holy mountain. And we will hear that everything they're doing here, that Moses is then passing on to the people to build, this is the very physical representation of what he saw on top of the mountain in the presence of the Lord of the heavenly place. So if you want to imagine that, in a sense, he's seen something from another dimension, and I don't say that as in to diminish who God is, to somehow pull God into a string theory or multiverse universe. This is not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's coming from a place and it's in heaven, and he's trying to translate what God's showing him into earth. Okay, so these are representations of real things. The real things he saw, these are merely representations, and these representations carry with it the holiness, the very expression of God's throne room and his nature are expressed into them, but they are only representations of the real things. Okay, so the tabernacle, verse 1, chapter 26. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, blue and purple and scarlet yarns. You shall make them with cherubim skillfully worked into them. So imagine this tent that is made. Think of a large rectangle. And this tent is dark, dark, dark. Black and purple and blue. And these cherubim, you know, woven into them. But it is not like, say, a billowing white tent out in the desert. Okay, this is a deep, dark-looking tent. I want you to read that section there about all the details, but I want you to come down here to chapter 27, verse 1. And let's look at the bronze altar. You shall make the altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits broad. It's much larger now. Again, 18 inches. So you're doing 5 cubits. So 2 cubits, 36 inches, right? So now you have 72, and you add 18. What do you have? You have 90 inches. This is very large, okay? And it's square. 5 cubits by 5 cubits. The height shall be 3 cubits. So it's not as high as it is square, right? And I want you to come down here to verse 8. You shall make it hollow with boards as has been shown to you on the mountain, so shall it be made. Subtle construction point. It's going to be something that's hollow so you can actually pick it up. And it has the poles that you're going to put through the rings, and you're going to pick this table up and move it. The whole concept behind that is that, again, you don't touch these holy things. So you have poles that slide through rings that lift up the table. It's also light enough, because it is hollow, that you could actually pick it up with people. And again, note, it has been shown you on the mountain, so shall it be made. What Moses saw in heaven was the real deal. And even this holy object is only an image of the thing which he saw. I believe we will get to see the real table, the real altar, the real tabernacle, as it were. That's the throne room of heaven. We'll get to see the real pavement. I believe that because we see images of it, in a sense, in the book of Daniel, and it's, you know, at least alluded to. And then we get to see it again in the book of Revelation. So I believe this isn't just like a single happenstance. I don't think that this is a singular message that was put out in the Bible to make a point. I believe this is a real place. And Moses got to see it. And we, okay, having been made clean by Jesus's blood, the Son of God, will be such that we get to see this holy of holy scenes in heaven. Okay, so let's come down to the court of the tabernacle. You shall make the court of the tabernacle. On the south side of the court you shall have hangings of fine twine, linen, 100 cubits long on one side. So first you have the inner tent, and then you have the outer court. So you have the tent, and then you have like a court around it. So it's not like you can just walk up to the tent, right? Within which then you have these various elements. There's going to be a court around it. And then the oil, verse 20. You shall command the people of Israel that they bring to you pure beaten olive oil for light, and that a lamp may regularly be set up to burn. And I think this is interesting, so we'll read the whole passage here. In the tent, a meeting outside the veil that is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall tend it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever to be observed throughout their generations by the people of Israel. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This light was to be provided for from the people. Imagine, in a very small way, you get to contribute to a component of this incredible construction that represents the throne room of heaven, that you get to bring pure beaten olive oil and present it so that the priests and, the sons of Moses could, in fact, keep this light going constantly, right? They're trimming the wick, and they're adding a new wick and putting it in oil, and they're keeping this light going perpetually. And you see this sort of concept represented in various places around the world. There are times where you'll have the eternal flame at a grave site, or some sort of a ceremonial place, at a particularly important building in the world. For the Olympics, they'll light the torch, right? They'll take that torch all over the place, and they'll run it across the country that's hosting the Olympics. And they'll bring that torch, and they'll light that cauldron of fire, and they'll run that fire until the Olympics are over. But in this case, they were commanded to keep this thing burning 24/7 as a sign, an eternal flame, a sign of the eternal light, right? So let's look at the priest's garments. Chapter 28. Then bring near to you Aaron your brother and his sons with him from among the people of Israel to serve me as priests. Aaron and Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And you shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for beauty. I'm not going to get into all the details on these garments, but I want to note something there. You shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother for glory. Okay, makes sense. Priestly garments for glory, right? This is glorious. They're meant to be representative of one who has a service for the creator of the universe, okay? But they're also beautiful. So this is where I don't beat up some of the high churches like evangelicals tend to. They're like, why are you wearing all that pomp and circumstance? Why are you, in the Catholic Church, have all these robes and the gold and the various hats and, why does the choir wear all these, silk robes with the sashes and all this stuff? And evangelicals tend to be like, hey, show up in your jeans and t-shirt. And to be fair, God has taken down the barriers to worship. Again, he ate and drank with irreligious Jews in order to communicate that God is now reaching out among the people. He's broken down all these barriers. So there is a breakdown in terms of wearing religious garb. But this is where that principle comes from. It's okay to make beautiful things. I think in evangelicalism, sometimes we get to the point where we want Jesus to be our buddy so much, and that expending money on anything but sharing the gospel, is a waste of money in the church, that we don't make beautiful buildings. We don't make beautiful things. We don't make beautiful clothing for worship. Because we're like, we don't need that. And I'm like, true, you don't need it, but you could do it. You could do it. And I also think there is some hypocrisy in the evangelical side of the church in that we're like, well, we aren't going to waste money on a beautiful building or a beautiful sanctuary or, but we're going to spend, $100,000 on a new video board and sound system. Oh, we aren't going to waste money on a comfortable set of seats. We're going to roll with these old plastic chairs or, these pews that have been there for, 30 years. So you're going to sit on the same hard surface or whatever. Okay. But we're going to do, everybody here, half the congregation is going to take vacations at Disneyland. My point is that on the one hand, we're like, don't spend money on beautiful things, but then we're going to go spend the money to watch an awesome movie that's really well done and the production value is incredibly high. Or again, we're going to go to a worship service where, the sanctuary isn't all that great, because we won't spend money on making beautiful things or stained glass or any of that in the evangelical church. But we're going to throw up, the worship team and the pastor wants us to have, $100,000, $500,000 stage set up with video equipment. You see what I mean? And here's the thing. I don't have a problem with the video equipment. I don't have a problem with the stage. I don't have a problem with using the technology and tools to make a great sound system. But on the other hand, why is the foyer just white paint and, old beat up red carpet, Like, no artwork? Well, we don't want any idols. Okay, great. You think somebody's going to fall down on their knees and start worshiping a glass pane because it depicts Mary with the baby Jesus in your evangelical church? You think somehow they're going to be led astray? Right? So, yes, there can be a gaudiness and an extra, so much extra in some churches. A lot of the high churches struggle with this, right? And if you go to one, you know that there's a little bit too much pomp and circumstance at sometimes. But on the other hand, evangelicals, sometimes we don't put enough effort into it. Here in the priestly garments, what did he say? Made it for God's glory and to be beautiful. It's okay to make beautiful things. God made beautiful things. All right. So please read that chapter. It talks about how they're going to make the breastpiece with the various stones on it, and they're going to put the Urim and Thummim, which I'm not going to get into a whole lot, but it was the ability for them to discern with. Aaron shall bear judgment of the people of Israel on his heart before the Lord regularly. These robes, these garments, this clothing were made for God's glory and made to be beautiful. The tent of meeting, which no longer exists as far as anybody ever knows, it was made to be a representation of a holy thing in heaven. And ultimately, Jesus Christ stood in that presence of his Father in the real holy of holy areas, right? In the real presence, which Moses saw, this real place. And you and I will get to stand in the presence of this holy place in heaven because Jesus Christ, his blood is much better than the blood of bulls and goats. He is our sacrifice. He stood slain before his Father. He was worthy to open up the seals of the scroll. And he's the one who's made us worthy to enter into the presence of the Lord. Okay. All right. Hey, till next time, we'll keep going. We're going to look at the consecration of the priests, and we'll look at we're getting towards the end of Exodus, actually. So we'll be getting close to finishing here. But again, if you did not read this section, I want you to go back and skim or put it on an audiobook. Okay, go to esv.org and hit the little audio icon and listen. And just listen and see what you pick up. Okay, so until next time, keep walking. Keep walking. God bless you. Bye-bye.